82,000 seats in MetLife Stadium are set for a terminal collision between two distinct football philosophies. Argentina's path here relied on high-variance outcomes. They survived extra time periods against Cape Verde and Switzerland, eventually edging past England in the semifinal by leveraging late-game pressure. Spain's progression was more predictable. They prioritized control, moving through the bracket with high possession metrics that peaked in a 2-0 semi-final victory over France. This creates a specific structural challenge for Luis de la Fuente. He has to deploy a rigid defensive architecture against a statistical outlier that operates outside of standard formation logic. The Spanish defense has proven difficult to breach. Over the entire length of this tournament, they have conceded only one goal. That record now meets Lionel Messi's current output: 8 goals, 4 assists, and a 9.03 average match rating. Analyzing a match of this scale requires looking past the broad contrast of collective structure versus individual talent. The resolution of this final exists in the interaction within the central half spaces, where Spain's defensive geometry must account for Argentina's specific patterns of movement. Argentina initiates offenses through slow, lateral ball circulation in the middle third. This patient possession pulls defensive blocks out of alignment, forcing defenders to shift and create gaps. Once stretched, Argentina abruptly shifts toward verticality, attempting to pierce the final third. The change in tempo is immediate. A precisely weighted through ball is intended to break the defensive line before the center backs can reset their footing. Messi facilitates this transition by vacating the forward line and dropping deep, positioning himself in the gaps between the opposition's midfield and defense. Upon finding that pocket, he executes a specific sequence, receiving on the half-turn to face goal, then immediately selecting a passing lane or shooting angle. This variation in speed forces defenses to reset their spatial awareness repeatedly, making it difficult to maintain consistent defensive coverage using standard marking assignments. Luis de la Fuente balances high possession with an aggressive structural block, pinning opponents deep in their own half. The results have been consistent. Unai Simon has recorded 6 clean sheets by relying on this high line to stop attacks before the penalty area. However, this layout has an inherent risk. A high defensive line creates a massive zone of empty space between the center backs and the goalkeeper. This zone is the primary target for long, looping balls delivered over the top from deep midfield. Lautaro Martinez provides the physical profile to exploit these passes. His role is to anticipate the delivery and chase the ball into that vacated space. If Spain's midfield fails to apply pressure to the ball carrier, the defense faces a disadvantageous scenario where the passer has time to measure a ball. Even with 6 clean sheets, this structural characteristic exists, and Argentina's passing patterns are specifically suited to test it. In the semifinal, Spain's priority was containing Kylian Mbappe's lateral speed in wide areas. This match requires a shift toward managing central space. The adjustment involves Spain dynamically compressing the vertical distance between their midfield pivot and defensive line. This highlights the interaction between Rodri's spatial awareness and Messi's positioning. Rodri must act as a spatial screen, shifting horizontally to block passing lanes into that central pocket. When the ball reaches that zone, Rodri's task is to stay within close proximity of Messi, preventing him from turning to face the goal. At the same time, Spain's center backs have to step forward to close the gap from the rear, effectively surrounding the receiver. The effectiveness of Spain's defensive structure depends on Rodri's ability to limit Messi's involvement during these transitional moments. Argentina's tournament record shows a drop in defensive intensity during the final stages of matches, which has led to conceded goals and extra time periods. The exertion required to manage England's physical play in the semi-final may further impact Argentina's ability to maintain. Lamine Yamal's dribbling style is well suited to challenge an opponent showing signs of fatigue. He uses rapid footwork and sudden changes in direction to beat his marker and drive toward the interior of the pitch. Mikel Oyarzabal often benefits from this movement. His ability to find space inside the box has resulted in 5 goals so far this tournament. This forces Argentina into a difficult position where they must repeatedly adjust their defensive block to track Spain's midfield rotations. To maximize this advantage, Spain must initiate these rotations early in the match to test Argentina's structural organization before the pace of the game stabilizes. This model illustrates the conflict. Spain's high defensive line is positioned directly against Argentina's vertical passing vectors, creating a high-pressure zone in the center of the field. If Spain fails to convert the opportunities generated by Yamal and Oyarzabal, they risk a scenario where their defensive structure begins to lose its shape due to fatigue. Extending the match into extra time or a penalty shootout would move the game into a phase where the statistical probabilities shift. Argentina has a high success rate in penalty shootouts, having won 6 out of their last 7 attempts in major tournaments. While Unai Simón has a strong clean sheet record, relying on that performance in a shootout against an 85% win rate presents a high degree of risk. The outcome rests on whether Spain can maintain that central screen long enough to deny Messi the space he requires to turn toward the goal. To avoid the historical probability of an Argentine shootout victory, Spain must maintain their structural discipline and conclude the match within regulation time.